is that we do want to take time and space to discuss the study report for the subcommittee for the LGBTQ report. And I know Commissioner Price and Commissioner Thompson as well. They played an integral part with this committee as well. And so then, of course, we need to vote on it. Is that correct, Ms. Wanda? Correct. Okay. All right. So we want to go ahead and take time and to do that right now. Should we? Can we share the screen to pull it up if we need to do so?
Yes, I can put it up right now.
Okay. And then we'll let. Should we allow Eleanor to speak on it, or Joshua, or sorry, Commissioner Price or Commissioner Thompson? They can chime in if they need to. Correct.
Sure. I mean, we can all help each other out there. Eleanor, do you feel comfortable taking the lead? Or would you prefer one of the commissioners to do that?
I certainly don't mind, Eleanor, if you'd prefer for me to go.
I'm sorry, I could not figure out where the unmute button was when I was sharing my screen because it's not in the same place. I can do it, or Commissioner Price can do it. It doesn't matter to me.
Does the group have a preference for like actually having it read out loud versus take like 5 minutes or 10 minutes and we all quickly read through it on our own and then come back and discuss, or would the preference be to kind of go through each page and summarize a little bit and then probably vote?
I think that
Commissioner Price, I think since
I think it'll be appropriate. Yeah, I think it'll be appropriate just to highlight some points in it to read it out loud, besides of us taking our time to read it. Okay. Wanda, what do you think? Prefer?
Yes, I agree, Chair Leak. I was going to say, hopefully everyone has already read it. It was sent out early last week, and now it would just be a matter of going over some highlights, and hopefully we could keep up with, timing that way too, because like Chair Leak said, you all have to look at the actual strategic action plan too. But one thing I wanted to say before we get started is I was going to note that on this cover page, we will specify that this particular report was the NDO study subcommittee for the LGBTQIA+ community, because that part is not there, even though we have the banner down there, right. The Pride banner. We can add that if you all would like us to.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, just to be clear. So. Okay, well, yeah, I'd be happy to kind of go ahead and come through, but certainly Eleanor or Melissa, if you have any thoughts or anything you want to particularly point out, then absolutely jump in. But we've got just a couple of quick summaries, and then we've got some pages that are going to focus on each of the focus groups with recommendations. So about the non-discrimination subcommittee, as we mentioned earlier, it was a subcommittee that was chaired by myself and Vice Chair Thompson, with members from the community applying for the subcommittee, and we went through an application process, making sure we got a great diverse group, and we had some really good community representation and community involvement. So felt really good about who we had in there. You see, we've got a great picture there of one of the meetings, so that was good. So we can go ahead and move on. Okay, our executive summary. Excuse me. So as I think everyone here is aware, this was kicked off by a member of our city council who wanted a particular subcommittee to look into the possibility of having a group do an investigation and come back with recommendations for LGBTQIA+ policies, rules, laws, guidelines, funding for things that we thought would make the city more inclusive and open and welcoming in the LGBTQIA+ arena. And so we can see, yeah, it came from a set of House bills. I won't go through exactly that. We did have good community support demonstrated in messages sent to City Council. And then the Winston-Salem Non-Discrimination Ordinance was, of course, passed. And so that was really what drove this. And then we brought the subcommittee together and had our marching orders of going ahead and doing the investigation and brainstorming and then coming back with recommendations. So our housing recommendations. So we looked into, shelters, apartment management, quite a few areas for housing. Looked at some peer examples in Atlanta and New York and New Jersey and Connecticut. I had forgotten about Connecticut. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. And wanted to first make sure that we offered training for all of those organizations. We did have some discussion about mandatory rules about numbers of beds and shelters, and effectively, just to quick summarize, turns out we didn't really have authority over that. There are already different policies, rules, laws in place that really are very strict in that area, and so we couldn't carve out very specific sets of things, but we did want to offer training in that area. We'll move down to number 3 here. Dedicate funding for outreach to the local population. So that was one of our big recommendations, and we did have some peer examples on that as well. And then number 4, promote awareness of the NDO ordinances through mailings and newsletters. So that was one of the recommendations we made as well. For economic mobility, recognizing that there are municipalities across North Carolina, excuse me, that have employed mechanisms within this kind of arena. We wanted to recommend a periodic review of the economic data for the LGBTQIA plus business component, and so that is our first recommendation. The second one is a city review of existing economic mobility and support, because there are quite a few organizations, as you can see, are listed there with the hyperlinks that already exist, and so understanding what we have and what is already available is very important then for determining the go forward of funding or programs. And so those were 2 from economic mobility. Our recommendations for outreach and visibility. We wanted to do the Pride Flag Crosswalk, and there was some talk about that already being done under a different organization, but that ended up kind of either falling through or hitting some roadblocks. So we did end up including that in our recommendation. As you can see, quite a few other cities have done such a thing, and so we had a recommendation to have that completed by next summer. So we're looking forward to that. To pursue a 100% municipal rating score from the Human Rights Campaign, we really had lagged quite far behind a lot of similar cities for a municipal rating score from the Human Rights Campaign, but a lot of it was just quantifying what we already have and then making that very public knowledge. But that's important, right? We wanted to make sure that if LGBTQIA plus these citizens are thinking about moving to Winston-Salem and they look up this score, that they don't get a false impression of where we are and how much work has gone into it. And so not only do we want to make sure we are reflecting what the city already is, but that we are pushing forward to what we want the city to be. So that was kind of an important public statement there. And then recognize and honor the local LGBTQIA plus historic sites, which we talked a little bit about earlier. And so hopefully that we can kind of wrap that all in with the historic sites conversations we were having from before. Participate in national honor days such as Trans Day of Visibility, Coming Out Day, and Trans Day of Remembrance. And so we would like to recommend that. And then recognize June Pride Month by flying the pride flags through downtown and continuing the tradition of the mayor and city council issuing the official June Pride Month proclamation. So those are our outreach and visibility. Our recommendations for city facilities revolved primarily around the creation of all gender restrooms. So we had a recommendation that all of our single occupancy, city controlled restrooms be relabeled from either male or female to an all gender restroom. And as you can see, there's quite a few other cities and areas that have already done this. And so that was just what we hope is an easy and inexpensive way to be inclusive and welcoming. So and then we've got a performance measure of converting at a particular rate. So. And then I believe finally the last one is there are recommendations for social services. So work with long-term care facilities to make sure that they are LGBTQIA plus friendly. And so we want to contact and offer training and offer input for our long-term care facilities. Share the SAGE resources on the city's webpage for seniors. And so that we're shooting to have done by August. I had forgotten about that. And then certainly to continue updating that going forward. Share information on local LGBTQI friendly social service organizations. And this was a big one where we thought we could make a lot of headway, really, and I kind of touched on this earlier, really by highlighting what we already have, by highlighting the nonprofits, the organizations, the areas that already exist in this city, and giving a single place, giving a single website, webpage that's associated with us, associated with the city, that kind of can tie all of that together. And so once again, if someone is looking at the city, they can immediately see all of these different organizations that could be helpful in many different ways, and it shows that we do have an inclusive and welcoming city with a lot of support. And then the last one was to use the city's marketing and outreach to make the LGBTQIA plus populations aware of boards, commissions, and other ways for them to then become part of the city's inner workings, essentially, and make sure that they're aware of those opportunities to become more involved, because and that'll just create a stronger web from the whole view. If we can, as a city, be more open, and then we can get those diverse populations more involved, we thought that would be great. So conclusion, I will go ahead and just read this out since it is short, and I think it'll give us a nice wrap up. The NDO study subcommittee members greatly appreciate the opportunity to work with the Human Relations Commission, City Council, and the Human Relations DEI staff on this historic effort. While the members of this committee understand that non-discrimination ordinances cover 17 protected classes of persons, we are particularly appreciative of the fact that the LGBTQIA+ community has been provided with this unprecedented opportunity for input and guidance. We believe that the contents of this report accurately reflect the positive progression of the direction and demographics of the Winston-Salem community. We would like to especially thank the NDO community group and all of the interested supporters throughout the state of North Carolina. Last but not least, we would like to particularly thank City Council member Kevin Mundy and Mayor Pro Tempore Denise D. Adams and City Attorney Angela Carmen for their diligent and hard work on researching, drafting, and leading the passage of the non-discrimination ordinances. And that is all. So it was a great group to be part of. I'm really pleased with where we ended up. Eleanor and Joshanta were fantastic for helping, and all the people mentioned there in the conclusion really did play a very, very key part. So Eleanor, Melissa, anything you guys would like to add? I know we went through that pretty quickly, but but does anyone have any questions or anything that they would like to share along those lines? Well, very good. Oh, Chairperson Leek, did you have something?
Yes. So does this, since we have this report, we're getting ready to vote on it. Does that mean that the committee is getting ready to come to an end?
If the HRC does vote to send it forward, then that subcommittee is at a minimum on hold right now. We will not continue meeting. If the city council then comes back with some questions or some things they want us to investigate further, we can bring it back to life and do so. But and then of course, if the vote here in this committee is that no, we want to go back into subcommittee and look at making any changes, any additional recommendations, then we would immediately start meeting again. But but that is correct, that subcommittee is not, we do not have any further scheduled meetings, assuming that that the HRC approves it and that city council doesn't have anything specific that they need us to look back into.
Okay, because I remember earlier this morning that Commissioner Wiggins, she had stated about looking at a different class. Will we have to probably, formalize a new committee if we was to do so?
We would.
Okay.
This committee was very specifically organized, yeah. So, which would be fine. We can certainly talk about that and vote on that, but that would not be a continuation of this committee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I move to approve the study with the addition of clarifying that this was related to the LGBTQIA+ community on the cover, and with moving forward with the report as presented.
Okay, there was a motion by Commissioner Haynes. There's a second by Commissioner Wiggins. All right, Commissioner Price.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Commissioner Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Wiggins.
Aye.
Of course, Chair Leak is aye as well. Any opposed? Any discussion? All right, the ayes have it. All right, thank you all so much, and great work to Commissioner Price and Commissioner Vice Chair Thompson as well. And Commissioner Wiggins, I think that we'll be looking forward to your idea in regards to moving forward with focus on a different class. And I think that we got some great expertise from Eleanor and Commissioner Price and Thompson to help with that as well, if that needs to be done so.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chair Lee.
All right, the next thing we're going to move forward with is our, now we're going to go ahead and move forward with our strategic action amended plan. And I guess we can put that on the screen as well. We're going to have to work through this. Yeah. And I'm going to allow Ms. Wanda Allen Abraham to walk us through it, only because I want to also have some dialogue within this plan as well. So,
okay, sure, Chair Lee. As you see on the cover page, we started with the updates there to the name of the department, and also we added the fact that this document has been updated and amended today, assuming you all are okay with moving forward. So we did go ahead and update the cover. And so scrolling on down, all of that stayed the same in terms of just the mission and duties of the commission, and then thinking about the focus areas and the infrastructure for the commission and now let's pause there. When we look at the subcommittees, the standing committees of the HRC rather, you see we have community relations, we have executive, which consists of Chair Leak, Vice Chair Thompson, and myself, the hearing board, we have multicultural relations, New Horizons, and student human relations. Those were all already there. And so I don't know if the commission may want to think about or entertain having any other subcommittees in light of the fact that we do have DEI and NDO, particularly. And then, of course, we do have 2 language access coordinator positions that we are in the process of advertising right now. And so the language access coordinator and that work, or coordinators and the work that they will do, could probably fall under multicultural relations. And perhaps DEI could too, but then again, DEI could be a standalone committee. And in terms of NDO, that's something that may be a standalone too. I just wanted to give you all the opportunity to think about whether you wanted to add any more standing committees or whether you'd like to fold those new areas for the department and commission under your existing standing committees. So did anyone have any thoughts about that?
Wanda, I do. I don't know if it's, I have a thought. I don't know. Well, maybe it's a question. So when we just discussed where we're going to look at addressing a different class, right? Protected class. Would we need a different subcommittee if we continue to look at addressing each class, protected class? Will we have to have a different committee every time? I know we just transitioned, and I know the NDO was a specific committee for a specific class. But will we have to do that each time?
And thank you, Commissioner Wiggins, for the question. I would say that if the commission follows the model that was established by the City Council to have study subcommittees, and of course that was an ad hoc study subcommittee, then you would not necessarily need to establish a new standing committee, because you could continue to have those subcommittees to be ad hoc, meaning they could be temporary in nature. Once they conclude the business and the work that they were charged with doing, then it could just transform over into the next focus area or the next protected class. So I don't know that you would necessarily have to have a standing committee as long as the ad hoc status continued for each of the areas that you all want to see studied.
It makes sense to me to fold the language access piece into multicultural relations, but I also think that there's enough there with DEI and NDO issues that would warrant a standing committee if that were the pleasure of the whole commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Haynes.
That's exactly what I was thinking. That's kind of where I was leaning. I will be honest, like I don't understand yet. I just haven't given enough thought to it of what the DEI committee would, like what kind of their cadence would be. The NDO I get because I was just involved with a whole bunch of it, so that's very fresh to mind. But can I get some thoughts or some brainstorming on like what a DEI committee, standing committee would cover, like what types of things they would be looking to do?
Well, I would think perhaps a DEI subcommittee could make recommendations based on what the DEI staff is doing with our internal operations. Just thinking out loud, I'm thinking that
Sure.
That's where the value could be, is that there could be that external voice and in an advisory capacity that could provide feedback to DEI with respect to maybe best practices from other organizations that they may work with, the members may work with or be aware of, or things of that nature. That's where I'm seeing the main value right now. But I'm sure there will be others too.
And I would envision that group would be the group that, as different protected classes came up for different studies related to the NDO, that would be the group of people who would be part of that. And of course, I think we could draw other people in if they were interested, but that's what I envision for that group as well. And I would fold those in together, DEI and NDO, into one committee. think they're
Oh,
related.
okay.
I think they're related enough to put it together.
Sure. I like that. I like that idea. I think one new one new committee could cover both of those areas. But it would be a separate committee. I would be supportive of that.
And I also think that that group of people could be a liaison between, for example, if they're looking at NDO issues, maybe they could be a liaison between the rest of the commission and then that group as well. And so they could be the individuals who sort of take recommendations of the larger committee back to the group related to DEI issues or NDO issues, or just liaising with the staff that are particularly focused on DEI issues.
So Commissioner Haynes, when you say that you could see DEI and NDO being one committee, I guess I'm trying to figure out, I'm thinking about staff too, and like staff point people, for the individual committees. And so I guess that would mean that one from each division would be involved with this subcommittee. And then number two, what would be a name or how would you look at this committee being titled? You know what I mean? Because
looking at the names we already have.
So you're saying, okay, so you're saying that for this new committee, that it would be just DEI NDO or something like that. DEI NDO committee. Is that what you had in mind? And then, okay.
Maybe something like that, but I see their sort of broad purpose being related to non-discrimination initiatives.
I could even see it being just labeled as a DEI committee where NDO it's part of their responsibility from a committee standpoint.
Right.
Okay. If I could make a recommendation.
I think that's the equity part.
Yep.
Okay. You know what, Commissioner Haynes, just saying equity, would you be comfortable with it being like the equity committee or the equity, I don't know, something like that. I want to make sure that if we have one division's name in the name of the committee, the other division is represented somehow. Either maybe they're both represented or they're both not represented, but there could be some other umbrella name that would encompass them both, if that makes sense.
Equity and non-discrimination.
That's what I was thinking and wondering if it's almost a little redundant at the same time. To me, they sort of mean the same thing, but it does encompass both.
It also has the acronym of END, and I'm not sure that's good.
Oh. Maybe that's not the best acronym. I did love, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Shanta who said it, but when she said she was equity assurance, I love equity assurance, but I don't know that that's necessarily a name for a committee. But I would think generally that the theme would be equity, non-discrimination. So maybe we could brainstorm a name that would encompass both of those ideas.
Okay, because the big common thread is that all of the protected classes of persons is reflected both in NDO and DEI. They're the exact same protected classes of persons. So, So I don't know if we need to maybe consider like something about protected classes in the name, or I don't know, something along those lines. But I just wanted to really get your, advice and feedback on where you'd like to go with that, or if you even want to have that as an additional committee. And secondly, we would need to have someone who'd be willing from the commission to chair that committee. And so that's something to consider as well. So anyway, I'm glad that, and we can circle back with this. We don't have to have all the answers right now, but I just wanted to raise that because if we need to amend this page and add that, then we can do so. But moving on, Eleanor, can we scroll on down? And you see we have program priorities. And Eleanor, you can chime in too, because I know you and I were working together on this. So let's go down to where, because nothing has changed with the fair housing landlord tenant part right here. Eleanor, back up. That is where Eleanor added employment discrimination and public accommodations discrimination. She added this information in this section, and she took that from our department's equity plan. We call it an inclusion plan for our department. And so they already have these items as items on which to focus.
So does this assume that related to the functions we were talking about as far as DEI and maybe even NDO, that would all be folded in under community relations? Because it looks like that's how it's written.
That's how we did it, because that was more of a placeholder until we could know exactly what direction you all wanted to go in. So yeah, just don't get hung up on what we have as the assigned committees, because those are placeholders. Just until you all decide, okay, what will this committee be, if you even have one, and what's the name and all of that. So that's why that's there.
Community relations does a lot already, which is why I was thinking of something else standalone.
Yeah, you're right. It's a very broad scope that they have. That's true. And so once you all decide on what you want to call this new committee, then we'll put that there, and then we'll just make sure that all these things are included under it. So you see, that's again what she added. I don't know if anybody has any questions about the bullets under employment discrimination and public accommodations discrimination. Because if not, we're going to continue on. Okay, Eleanor, we can scroll down.
I think this may be the old file, because the things I added are not actually here. So
I think go back up, Eleanor, a little bit, please. No, go back down to where it says language access. I think this is the same one. It looks a little different because you did not see it after I added language access. And so some of the stuff may look different to you in terms of what was on which page and so on. So the language access under number 9 is what was added. I added that, and I just put staff, and we don't have any dates there because, again, Eleanor and I were working on this together. But in language access, unlike NDO and DEI, they have not started yet. We haven't hired the staff yet. We're still in the process of taking applications for those positions. And so we're waiting to see how that timeline is going to look in terms of finishing that process up and getting those people on board so that we can try to project some reasonable timelines for this work. But as you see with the language access program, the plan is to hire a language access coordinator who will work with our BIC committee. So working with building integrated communities, which is of course working with immigrants, refugees, and asylees to make sure that they have access to city programs and services. And so that complements Title VI quite nicely. And so that is what that bullet is about. And then we're going to hire a language access coordinator to work with the Hispanic community. And so that particular person will be working very closely with our marketing and communications department to make sure that information is translated and that is conveyed to the Hispanic community directly and or through organizations and individuals who work with them. So churches, all of that. So those are the 2 positions. And then once on board, we're going to develop a community ambassadors program, which will establish relationships with the local international populations. And so we have a whole plan for what that can look like and how it can function, how it can really help with easing or mitigating barriers to digital equity, because a lot of people do not have access to the internet. And those who do may not know how to navigate it very well. They may not even know how to find our website or get to the BIC information that we have online. And so we're going to be working with the city's IS department and another organization. I think it's called, I'm drawing a blank, Winston-Net. We're going to be working with them to make sure we have a collaborative approach to reaching out to the community and training them on how to access information online. So that is what that program is going to look like, more or less. And then, of course, we're going to develop multilingual training for the community so that they understand exactly what their rights are and what the protections are. And of course, finally, working with International Village in whatever capacity that we can come up with. So that's what the Language Access Program is. That's what it looks like. So that's so far anyway. Any questions about the Language Access Program or the LACs, the Language Access Coordinators? Okay. And Eleanor, did you want to go ahead and scroll down to see, I think you added some other information farther down, is that right? Yeah, we added there, right? Yeah. You want to talk about that? Eleanor, maybe having.
It is really hard to get the unmute button to show up when I'm sharing my screen.
That's okay.
It disappears and then I can't get it to come back. Okay. Yeah, this is all things that I covered earlier, doing advertising campaigns on social media, TV, and the local city buses. Well, they actually weren't on the report because we hadn't done them last fiscal year, but we have done it now. So that's happening, and distributing the flyers and brochures, working with relevant advocacy organizations. And then a new thing that we want to do is create an NDO barometer for the website.
Okay, any questions? Does anyone have any questions about this section for Eleanor in terms of increasing public awareness of NDOs?
Nope, that looks great.
Thank you, Commissioner Price. And Eleanor, were there other additions that you made for NDO or for DEI farther down? I think maybe in community action. Did we have any references?
Yes, there are some in community action. This increased community support for NDOs. This is mostly doing more trainings and just doing more education in the community, specifically of the Hispanic community here once we have the language access coordinator, and creating that NDO supporter program that we talked about earlier.
Great.
Awesome.
Any questions?
How will this be conducted when it says educate employers and stakeholders? So what would be the mode of providing that education?
Go ahead, Eleanor.
Well, this was sort of taken from our yearly plan, which has a lot more detail on it, but this was talking about live trainings, reaching out to those organizations. Reaching out to the organizations and providing trainings, like we've done with the Ministers Conference and North Star, SOAR, etc.
Okay, I think more specifically, I get that, but I'm talking about for the community, for the lay people. So providing this education to Ministers Conference and those individuals so that they have that education. What mode are we providing to provide that education to Mary Jane, wherever in the community, so that an everyday average person could have this training, this knowledge?
Well, the hope is that those leaders will continue to to like get that information out. Like ministers have congregations, people, all sorts of people come to North Star for various needs, and because North Star knows about it, they would know about it, is the hope.
Yes, that is correct, Commissioner Wiggins, as Eleanor stated, and that is a part of the challenge, and that is why we are soliciting suggestions and ideas from the Human Relations Commission if there are any other thoughts about how to get the word out to the general public. But right now, our starting point is to rely on those organizations who work with members of the general public in these specialized areas. And so I know that, for instance, Drashanta recently partnered with the Hispanic League to be on one of their Facebook Live sessions to talk about NDO. And Drashanta and Eleanor have been on the radio, and they've talked about that on Winston-Salem State University's radio station. And so those types of things, but to actually get into the nuts and bolts of the legal protections and the training type of context, we really are depending more so on the organizations to pass the word on. And if those organizations need for us or want us to come back more than once, we can do that. But that's how we're starting right now, is just to rely on those organizations.
Okay, sounds great. So could we look at also doing maybe a segment on Nexus?
Absolutely,
Question
absolutely.
answer type of information session?
Absolutely, that's a great idea. And maybe we could change the format of Nexus and make it a special episode and have like a Q&A. That's a great idea.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So any other suggestions? Please feel free to let us know, because under the commission infrastructure, we did not make any changes in that section, correct, Eleanor?
That's right.
And so if we wanted to, we could make a change there to mention the addition of a new standing committee if you all decide to do that. We could just add that there or note that if you feel that's necessary. So going back to that very point, because it seems like we keep circling back to that either directly or indirectly, does anyone have any other thoughts or recommendations at this point in time about that standing committee? And if the commission is ready to vote to say that there needs to be a new standing committee, that's great. If the commission is ready to vote to if somebody wants to make a motion to suggest some names or a name for the standing subcommittee, that could happen today too. So it's just up to the pleasure of the commission.
Can I ask a question and not to sound like I don't get it, but I still kind of have a little blur. So I need to I'm trying to be clear in my understanding. So when we talk about the NDO being a specific committee for ad hoc committee for that particular class that they were covering, right? Or creating advocacy for. So when you say create a new committee, so we're saying this is going to be the committee that's going to look at all of the classes going forward, or Eleanor shaking her head, so I'm not getting it. So can you say it again so that I can understand it? I thought I saw you shake your head, Eleanor. I'm sorry. Because I'm just trying to understand because I heard the conversation, but I think I got lost in it. So are we looking? So can you just go back over there so that I understand?
Sure, Commissioner Wiggins, no problem. And this is all uncharted territory, so it's okay. We're going to have those questions. There may be a little bit of clarity that we all need, and that is perfectly fine. That is the purpose of having this discussion. So I guess it goes back to, is there a need to have a separate standalone committee like the ones you already have, or is it enough to have the ad hoc study committees for the individual protected classes that are selected by the commission when the time comes up? But if that happens, then is there a need to have a committee of any sort that would be in an advisory capacity for DEI? Okay, so number one, do you want to have a standalone committee that touches on NDO, DEI together or separately? Number two, do you want to continue with the ad hoc study subcommittee as we had with the LGBTQIA+ approach? And then number three, if you decide to just do NDO or to have that focus with the ad hoc study subcommittee, do you still want to have something separate that focuses on DEI, or is that not necessary?
Okay, I think I have it.
Okay.
Thank you. I think I have it.
Okay, so Commissioner Wiggins and other commissioners, what are your thoughts? What do you think about that? The three options, or the way I outlined the three things that we have to discuss?
I think for me, I think the first one, NDO and the DEI being together as one.
Okay. So you're looking at recommending that there be a new standing committee for NDO and DEI.
That would be correct, Wanda. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, and do you think that we still need to have the ad hoc subcommittees for each of the protected classes of persons?
How daunting would that be for the staff?
Yeah, that would be, well, let me put it this way. For the ad hoc study subcommittees, that would focus on the NDO division like it did before.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
But if there's an NDO/DEI standing committee, I would envision that would be a shared responsibility between those two divisions.
Okay.
I would say I agree with Commissioner Wiggins. I feel the same way about how it would be set up. There is the concern about how this is going to affect staffing and to me, the commissioners as well, with the number of committees that we'd have and the number of hours needed to volunteer effectively in these roles as well. And a question that I wanted to ask about, is there a possibility for new commissioners being introduced to the commission? I know that I believe we have capacity for 13 commissioners, and we've been operating with less than that since I've been on the commissions. Is there any way that we can do some kind of, I want to say recruitment, but letting people know that the work that we're doing and calling for volunteers in the community that might be interested to apply?
Yes, absolutely, Commissioner Vice Chair Thompson. And you're right, there's a capacity for up to 13 on the Human Relations Commission. You're not required to have 13, but you can have up to 13. And the thing to do, yes, would be to actively recruit. And what we've done in the past is the HRC has had a nominating committee, and that has been an ad hoc committee. And the nominating committee actually reviews applications that the mayor's office already has. And you, those on the nominating committee, the reason for the review is they're trying to identify what demographic areas may be met by the existing application pool. So in other words, if there is underrepresentation in any particular demographic on the commission, then the idea would be to hopefully fill that underrepresentation or beef that up by pulling from that pool of applicants, and then formally writing a memo to the mayor recommending those applicants based on the demographic that they satisfy.
So I think we see a benefit to combining a standing committee that has DEI and NDO responsibilities. But to Commissioner Thompson's point, we do have to populate it. And so I will raise my hand as someone who will serve on that committee. And so maybe if there are other commissioners now, if you would be interested in serving, we would know that we have that interest level in a combined new standing committee. And so maybe that might be one way to sort of figure out what the pleasure of the commission is.
I would serve on that committee.
I am very interested in that as well.
Awesome. So we already have 3 commissioners who would like to work with that committee, with the combined NDO DEI committee. Are there any other commissioners who are interested?
Yes, I would like to as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner Price.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
Well, of course, if we don't want to, if we don't desire to serve, we can always attend the meetings, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
Just like with
All right.
any of the other committees.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay. Now, okay, so that sounds like there's strong interest for having that combined focal point for that standing committee. What do you all feel about are you okay with proceeding with having different focuses for the ad hoc study subcommittee? Because, you know, they have a very specific purpose, as we saw in the ad hoc study committee report for the LGBTQIA+ community. They have a very specific purpose, which is to study and research gaps in service or programs or whatever that involve the city of Winston-Salem. And so those needs would be coming directly from those who are serving on that study subcommittee, who are representatives of that particular protected class or classes. So they have a very specific purpose.
I'm curious, from the commissioners who already served on the ad hoc committee, your thoughts about whether we should continue with it as an ad hoc or whether it should be folded into a new standing committee. Commissioner Price or Commissioner Thompson, do you all, or if there's someone else who served on that committee, that subcommittee, I apologize, but do you all have thoughts about that?
Go ahead, Melissa.
Well, I wonder if that couldn't be included under the DEI NDO committee for that part of their role is to help manage those additional studies. I do see it as an opportunity to reach out when we get to each protected class, to reach out to volunteers in the community like we did for the LGBTQIA+ and give them an opportunity to serve on a committee and just for a lot of different reasons, to get their viewpoint, of course, but to learn that they can have a voice in the community as well and how we move forwards. I think that's a really great opportunity for outreach in the community.
Totally agreed. I think there's a ton of value in getting community members who are not normally involved in this type of thing involved, and really getting very diverse viewpoints on what the needs in the community are, what could best help, what is actually going to help people on the ground. It was good. And I know this is a public forum. We're not going to hit on every one of them, right? And I think we learned kind of an important lesson on that on the LGBTQIA+ committee, that originally we were thinking a larger committee, and then we kind of ended up going smaller. And I think we went too small because we dropped about half people about halfway through. And so if I was to do it again, I would go ahead and recruit a few extra people, knowing that we're going to lose some interest. We're going to lose some people who didn't quite understand what they were getting into or whatever. But those half people that stay were fantastic, right? And it's so good to get that outside perspective, and so good to get their viewpoint and their contribution. And as you just said, Melissa, like having them then realize, oh, I can be a part of this. Like I can come in from the community and actually have a voice that, gets to city council. Like that's pretty fantastic. And I do see a lot of value in keeping that focus in focusing on a very specific population, on a very specific set of issues. I don't think we would want to have subcommittees rolling for all of them at once. I think one, maybe two would be what we'd want to do. And maybe you try some overlapping, because I know that, right, if you're only doing one or two, and you're doing it for a year and a half, it's going to take forever to get to everything. But I would think we would be overwhelming ourselves and the staff and everyone if we tried to take on too much at once. But I do think there's value in really getting into those details in each area. I would rather cover one area at a time and do a really good job, and just commit that we're going to get through them all eventually, than try to do it all at once and overwhelm ourselves.
And I would just add too, I think when we went into this first attempt at this subcommittee, we went into it not knowing a whole lot, and we worked it out as we went. We did realize, I think, that a year and a half wasn't necessary. We were able to finish the work once we kind of got a progress or a program in place on how we were working forward. So I think, we could go forward to having a template in place, knowing how this first attempt worked, that we wouldn't be looking at an 18-month time frame for future subcommittees, probably pushing it more to a 6 to 9 month policy process. And I think sometimes too, when you create those deadlines, it helps to move the work along to knowing, what those deadlines are. So it might take a year and a half to do additional studies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because how long did it take you guys? It took you about that time, right?
Was it a year?
It was almost exactly a year. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And that was with several months of kind of figuring things out. How,
that's very true.
Yeah.
How many community residents did you start out with?
I think it was 9.
I was thinking 7 and 9 with us. So
yeah, 9 including you.
And did we have two on hold too, just in case, though?
That's what it was.
But we weren't able to use them when it came to that point too. So, yeah, so it was 7 that we started with. And I would say, Josh, maybe at the end, we ended up with 3 or 4 that were still very actively engaged.
That's exactly, yeah, 3 very actively, and then another one who was pretty involved.
Mm-hmm. And I think getting the community involvement, I think that goes back to some of that education piece that I was referenced to earlier. Oftentimes we create information or warehouses of information for people, and sometimes the people who need the information don't receive it, and bringing individuals on that could help us guide the work. That way we're actually addressing issues that are impacting people as they are experiencing them or had experienced them or know someone. And so that's another way to address, bringing that information back full circle to our residents. So I concur with that. So thank you.
Okay, commissioners, thank you. So it sounds like you want to have a new standing committee that is NDO and DEI focused. And we have Commissioners Haynes, Wiggins, Vice Chair Thompson, and Commissioner Price who would like to work with that new standing committee. And one of the main purposes of this committee is going to be to work with this study subcommittee situation. I don't even know what to call it, but because it's going to be still a study subcommittee, I guess, in a way, because anyway, we'll work all that out. Anyway, the study for the protected classes of persons that will fall underneath this newly created standing committee, from what I'm hearing you all say. Is that pretty much sum it up and capture it? Okay.
As far as I'm concerned. Yep.
Okay, awesome. So at this point in time, then, Chair Leak, I would recommend that maybe a commissioner could go ahead and make a motion, but we need a motion for that. And we also would need a motion to accept the changes that have been made to the report, because Eleanor, hopefully will go back and update those areas, Eleanor, where we just had staff or where we just had Community Relations Committee, to put the name of the new standing committee. So 2 different motions, please. That's what I would recommend, Chair Leak.
Okay, I was trying to write it down. for the motions, but
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we create a new standing committee that would work in conjunction with the DEI and NDO teams.
okay, motion by Commissioner Vice Chair Thompson, is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Commissioner Price. All right, Commissioner Haynes,
Aye.
Commissioner Wiggins,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Price,
Aye.
Commissioner Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Of course, Commissioner Leak is aye. Any opposed? Any discussion? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you. Is there a second motion?
First, do we need to say what we're going to name that committee?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
I mean, we could always change the name in the future if we wanted to, correct?
Correct.
I would just propose non-discrimination and equity. Just a simple, straightforward, the same words we were talking about. Do we want a motion on that, or can we just pop that in for now?
Well, if everyone is okay with that, or if someone has, if they would like more time to think about it, then that can certainly be stated at this time from the commissioners.
For me, I would recommend a little bit more time. I like that, Josh.
Yeah.
Commissioner Price, excuse me. This didn't hit me in my, in that place.
Okay, let's just.
But I do appreciate your intent. I really do.
Oh no. I'm with you. Like it also doesn't strike me, but I just to have something go forward. So we'll just use that as a placeholder and circle back to it at some point. Cool.
Okay, and so for the purposes of the strategic action plan, we'll use that as the placeholder name throughout the document, with the understanding that you all have the authority to change that name at any time. All it would take is someone to make the motion and for you all to vote. Does that work?
Great.
That works for me. I would move to approve the changes to the HRC strategic action plan.
I will second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Hayes, second by Commissioner Price. Commissioner Vice Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Wiggins.
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Price.
I just went off mute. Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Chair Leak is aye. Any opposed? Any discussion? All right, the ayes have it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, commissioners. So like I said, the strategic action plan, everything else is the same. It was just those changes that we needed to talk to you about. So we greatly appreciate your advice and your insights and your guidance. And so Chair Leak, actually that concludes the strategic planning, and y'all knocked that out really, really well and thoroughly. So I know that we do have our Assistant City Attorney, Takesha Red, who's already with us, and she is prepared to go ahead and provide you all with some information from the City Attorney's Office. Hi, Keisha.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I hope y'all are having a great Friday thus far. I don't have a lot of material to present, so I won't be before you, I promise, any longer than I have to. In preparing for today's presentation, I asked Wanda, what was there anything specifically that she wanted me to go over? And she asked that I kind of give an update on the cause cases that we have in our office, and as well as kind of go over the Housing Justice Act. I think I may have added that in myself, which was recently approved by City Council. It was actually an affordable housing mechanism that is allowing the city to create more affordable housing in the community, but in doing so, making sure that it is done in a way so that people from all walks of life are able to partake in the housing, since there are public dollars being used in the development of such. So as of right now, I think there are 2 cause cases that we have in our office, both dealing with HOAs. That seemed to have been a theme among the during the pandemic. I'm thinking maybe because people were home more and they were just able to be extra observant about conditions that they otherwise would have had a problem with. So one of them deals with a homeowners association and a homeowner and a denial of a request for a modification to the dwelling unit to add a driveway, or another portion to the driveway, rather, to pave a portion of the lawn to widen the driveway. And then there is another one that involves the building of a ramp. Denial of a request to build a ramp. One of the occupants of the home uses a wheelchair, and he needed a ramp in order to access the property. And initially, they denied it for aesthetic reasons, and so that is how it ended up here in our office. Both of those are in, I guess, like the conciliation phase, and that we're trying to come to some resolution such that the homeowner, property owner, home occupants can receive the modifications that they need. And in the process, we can educate the homeowners associations on ways to make, and again, the pandemic may have added some hiccups and wrinkles to this, but ways to make the process for requesting a reasonable modification a bit more clear. Part of it, at least in my opinion, appears that there was confusion about to whom the request should go and when it should be considered and how it could be considered. And then there were delays in considering it because meetings were not being held in person. And so because of that, that just gives us an opportunity to work with HOAs to get them to understand how they can make it so residents know exactly where to go to request these, and the timeline in which they are to be considered, and decisions regarding those modifications, how they should be communicated. So those are those 2. One thing I just thought about that is interesting, we had come to us, it is and I think it is, and Wanda, let me know if I'm out of bounds for talking about it, but it's the investigation of the property manager. You remember that one?
Yeah, you can go ahead, Keisha, and talk about it. Yeah.
So that one was interesting in that it was a leasing agent, property manager, who had a tenant who needed, I guess, a reasonable accommodation. And the property manager educated the tenant as to how to request this. The property manager's boss did not agree. There was some discussion, and these are the facts as they have been told to us. It's still in the investigation phase. But the property manager and property owner then kind of got into some discussion about how the request for the reasonable accommodation should be treated. And according to the property manager, she was terminated. It originally came to us, and we were like, well, wait, hold on. This person isn't the aggrieved person. The aggrieved person is the tenant who was denied the reasonable accommodation. However, there is a provision a little bit lower down in the state statute that says if someone is retaliated against for aiding or assisting someone in obtaining a reasonable accommodation, they are entitled to relief. And so that was something that we all had to kind of take a step back, because as I said, when it came to us, we were like, wait a minute, what is this? No, you should, we thought she was trying to file a complaint on behalf of the tenant, but it was actually, she was filing it on behalf of herself because there was an adverse employment decision made as a result of her advocating for a tenant who needed a reasonable accommodation. So as I said, that one is still in the investigation phase. I haven't received it in my office yet, but that would be very interesting to see that one play out, because this was all of, I think I can speak for everyone to say, all of us involved. It was our first time having such a complaint come to our office. So those are the 2 things I have. And then the Housing Justice Act, as I mentioned, it was recently passed by City Council, and it was an ordinance put in place that allows City Council to attach restrictions on funds, public funds that are used in the development of affordable housing units. And so it could be new construction. It could be if someone comes to the city for a loan to rehab existing units. It has a wide application. And what it says is it sets aside, certain conditions in terms of, what portion or what percentage of the units are to be reserved and for how long. And it also outlines that in being considered for these types of housing or housing that has been built or rehabbed with city dollars, things like criminal records, there's certain categories of, criminal convictions or charges that can't be used in the consideration of whether or not that person is eligible to become a tenant. And if the person believes that they are or that they have been erroneously denied housing based on their criminal record, they are entitled to file a complaint, and the city will investigate that complaint. And my reading of it, and it may be a situation where there needs to be some clarity, but I believe that the ordinance can be read to say that the actual developer owner of the unit, if they disagree with the assessment, they have to get an opinion from the city before they deny the tenant the housing. I don't know if that was intentionally written that way or if that's how it reads. So that one may undergo some revisions in the future, but it certainly suggests that if they believe that someone should not be admitted as a tenant, they should come to us for an opinion before they make that denial. So we'll see how that plays out. It's new right now. I don't know that there are any developers or nonprofits or affordable housing groups right now applying for any of these funds. But this was just a way to make sure that if public dollars are being used, it is being used in a way that people from all walks of life in the city are eligible to participate. And so those were the only 3 things that I listed as kind of new updates, but I wanted to leave enough time for questions if anyone had it. And I know, as my mom said, I know not to stand between, 5 o'clock in the door. So as I said, I don't want you to feel like you have to answer questions if you truly don't, or ask questions if you truly don't have any. But I did want to leave enough time in case someone did.
So, Attorney Wade, so when the individual advocated for the tenant, the employee was subsequently, according to the information as you have received in your office, so the individual was terminated employment because they provided information to a resident or a tenant to resolve an issue that they was experiencing?
Well, my understanding is, in addition to providing the information, there was a bit of advocacy going on in terms of telling the employer, no, you have to do this, this, and this, or this is what is required, and no, we've got to do this. So it to me, it's 2 pieces, kind of telling the tenant, this is what you need to ask for, and helping the tenant ask for it, and then kind of telling the property owner, no, this is what you need to do, this is what we have to do. And as a result, the allegation is that she was terminated from employment.
Wow.
So yeah, so as I said, I think it's right at, I've been at the city since 2015, and so this will be the first retaliation case. I've seen retaliation cases in the instance where there was some sort of retaliatory action in terms of the housing provided, but not in an employment situation. So kind of excited to see where it goes.
Is that something that would have or could have come through, if it was a HUD, was this a HUD property? Do you know?
I don't think so.
So it wouldn't have come to our department. Okay.
Well, I mean, so initially we thought that it was coming to the department for consideration under the NDO, because we thought she was alleging that there was some adverse, employment action because of, because it was not really clear in the application who the parties were, and then kind of picking through it to see what was going on. And then when we said, well, this action happened before this ordinance was passed, so you kind of can't come in this door because this door wasn't here when this happened. And so then we kind of dug around a little bit more and got clear on exactly who the parties were and what the facts were. And then it became clear that it was a retaliation case.
Wow, good uncharted waters to be not a good thing for the individuals involved, but it is great experience as to how to be able to better help somebody. Well, very good. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for spending time with us today to educate us.
And as I said, I know I spoke really quickly, so if there's any questions or anybody needs me to repeat anything or anything like that, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I mean, they've made it so that, our offices, you kind of can't get from one office to the other like you used to be able to. But my contact information is on the website. I'm available. If you have any questions or, Wanda can get in touch with me, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Thank you for the update.
Yeah, no questions, but thanks very much for the update. That's awesome.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Keisha.
All right. Y'all have a good rest of your Friday.
You do
Thanks,
the
you
same.
too.
Have a great weekend. And Chair Leak, at this point, we are supposed to go into the final segment of the retreat. And we have with us Mr. Gene Troy from the North Carolina Human Relations Commission, who is here to provide updates from the state level of human relations and anything else he may want to discuss. Hi, Gene.
Hey, Wanda, how are you? Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's good seeing everybody here. I'm just glad to be a part of your retreat. Seems like every time y'all have a retreat, y'all always invite me. I must be doing something right. If you first of all, there's a couple of things that I do want to share with you concerning on the state level. The first thing that I want to share with you are the types of fair housing discrimination cases that we are getting now. As you know, we enforce the State Fair Housing Act in other areas besides Winston. And there are a lot of fair housing cases that are being filed with us right now. They are, the types are sex discrimination, basically either dealing with sexual harassment or sexual orientation. We've been seeing a rise in those types of cases on the state level. The next thing that we definitely have been seeing a rise on is handicap discrimination cases dealing with mental and physical disabilities. And the big thing that we have, that is the number one basis that we're getting cases on at this particular time. And they're more than half of the cases that we have in our inventory. And half of those cases are dealing with reasonable accommodations or reasonable modifications. And so we are being hit pretty hard with handicap discrimination cases. The next type of case that we're receiving is race, color, national origin discrimination, dealing with coercion, intimidation, threats, and interference. What we are seeing is that there has been a number of those types of cases that have been increased since 2018. And in North Carolina, we're seeing an increase. And what we're seeing is that we're seeing neighbors going against homeowners or persons in apartment complexes due to their race, their color, or their national origin, harassing them, coercing them, threatening them, those types of things that we have been noticing lately. And then the last one, which is our second type of case that we've been getting in after handicap, is race, color, national origin involving criminal records of applicants and housing decisions. In other words, a person is either trying to rent an apartment or townhome or house. They have a criminal record, and the landlords or either the property management companies are saying no because they have a criminal record, and they're not going in depth to look at those criminal records to see whether or not those persons have had a felony conviction within 7 years. So we're starting to see a lot more of those types of cases come in our office. And as a matter of fact, the second thing, I'm going right into what I wanted to say. The second thing is some of the fair housing cases that we have settled or we have seen in court due to our investigations. The first case that I wanted to talk to you about is a handicap case against a public housing authority. And it had to do with involving criminal records and the fact that the person, it was a female who was charged with assault. However, what happened was the female was protecting herself because the male was domestically abusing her physically. As a matter of fact, he threw her off the bridge, and he filed the assault charges against her. Well, the females sought refuge at a place where they would help persons who were domestically abused. When she received the charge, the place went to the DA and told the DA the whole story. The DA dropped the charges against that female. However, she tried to apply for housing through the Public Housing Authority. Public Housing Authority said no, because you have a criminal record. And it was based upon the arrest of the assault that she had on her record. However, the DA dismissed the charge. He dismissed the charge, and so she had no record of that assault on her record within 7 years. So therefore, our office did an investigation on it. We found that not only she was denied, but there were 4 other persons who had criminal records, but their offenses had been longer than 7 years, and they had been denied vouchers as well. We found in violation of that case, and suffice to say, the young lady received $48,000 because we would get ready to go to court, and they said, no, we're not, but we want to conciliate. The second case that I wanted to talk to you about is also a handicap case, and is against an apartment complex that we found out eventually that received federal funding. What happened is that there was a lady who had a son who was paralyzed, and he had a wheelchair. The apartment that he had just gotten hurt, and he was paralyzed. And so the mother asked for reasonable modifications on the apartment to put grab bars into the bathroom, to make the floors level in the bathroom, and to make sure the environmental controls were lower in the house, in the apartment. They delayed. They didn't, over 6 months, they delayed. So she filed a complaint with our office. We did an investigation. We found out who the owner was, and we found out also that they had they received federal funding, and that they had to pay for the reasonable modification. We told them that if they don't do it, then they would be in violation of the State Fair Housing Act. The respondents decided to conciliate the case, as well as went ahead and did the reasonable modifications that were needed for the tenant, the woman's son, who was in an electric wheelchair. And they did about 8 different things to modify that apartment. Once those 8 things were completed, they signed a conciliation agreement. But not only did they do that, but because of the delay, the lady had to move her son into a handicap accessible hotel room and pay for those payments until the apartment was available. So therefore, the housing provider provided them with $50,000 to take care of those costs for that gentleman. The third case that I wanted to talk about was a race discrimination case. There was a duplex. There was one apartment on one side, one apartment on the other. On one side, there was a Black family, a husband, a wife, and 3 kids. And on the other side, there was a white male and a white female who was going with the white male. On the side that the Black family was living on in the duplex, they were being managed by a property management company. But on the side that the white gentleman was living in, it was owned by his aunt and it was not being managed by the property management company. The gentleman started, once the Black couple went into the apartment on the opposite side, he made racial slurs. He started threatening them, saying he was going to kill those ends, he's going to kill those ends repeatedly. There were 3 different incidences that occurred. One was when the mother had her kids and a friend with her kids came over to visit them. And while they were in the home, the gentleman yelled through the wall, "I'm going to kill you, you children, and those ends that are over there," on numerous times. The third incident was when what happened on the third incident is that the Black family decided to move out. They told the property manager, "We told you about them. You haven't done anything. We're moving out." They were moving out, and as they were getting into the truck to leave, the white man came out with a gun and a machete, a shotgun, and started threatening them again, making racial slurs and running towards them as they were pulling off. As he pulled off, he got into his truck and followed them to see if he could get to them. However, the Black family dodged them and was able to get away from him. They filed a fair housing discrimination complaint with our office. During the investigation, we found out there were 2 other Black families that had been in that same place, and that white gentleman had done the same thing to them. We called the U.S. Department of Justice, and the housing division told them what we had. They called us asking us to waive the case to them. They did an investigation. They contacted the property manager, they contacted the owner, they contacted the 3 families, and they took the white gentleman to federal court. When they took him to federal court, the gentleman pled guilty. He was charged for 5 years in prison and $250,000 in fines that he was owed. Those were 3 big cases over the last year to 2 years that have happened with us. And so we do know for a fact that discrimination is still in existence when it comes to fair housing. And I heard about the situation when the attorney came on and talked about that case. I think we referred you to that. We referred that case to the Winston-Salem office. So I'm glad that was settled and that there was somewhat of a good outcome on that case. But just wanted to let you know that, yes, there's still fair housing discrimination is still happening. It's still real for a lot of people, and we're trying to do the best we can to help those persons who have been violated by housing providers. The next thing that I was told to ask or to requested to say is the types of hate crime or hate bias incidences that we have been getting reports on. As I don't know if you know, but my office, we're required to keep a log of an annual log on hate crime and hate bias incidences that occur in North Carolina. And so far, the top hate crime that has been reported to our office is tied between 2 categories. One, either someone's been receiving threats to a point where they're being threatened to be killed, racial slurs are being involved, or vandalism, where there are racial epithets or markings that are slurs towards African Americans and other minorities, are the 2 hate crime incidences that we are getting in that are tied as the top type hate crimes we're getting. Now the hate bias incidences, which are not criminal, but they are protected by they are hate motivated. The top incidents the type of top incidents we're receiving are derogatory public statements, letters, and expressions. We're seeing a lot of that where you have certain public people making public comments or statements and that are that are hate motivated, or they've made some type of expression that's hate motivated, or they've been sending letters in certain situations. Those are the types of hate bias incidences that we have been receiving so far this year. The next item that I wanted to talk to you about, and I know I'm going quickly, but I'm trying to get you out of here as soon as possible. Cities, counties in North Carolina that have a non-discrimination ordinance. From the records that I have on the state, from the state level, there are a total of 16 cities in North Carolina that have non-discrimination ordinances. They are Apex, Asheville, Carborough, Chapel Hill, Charlotte, Durham, Fayetteville, Garner, Greensboro, Hillsborough, Knightdale, Morrisville, Raleigh, Salisbury, Wilmington, and of course Winston-Salem. And so those are the 16 cities right now that have a non-discrimination ordinance effective as of last year. Most of them were created last year, with a few this year. As far as the counties in North Carolina, there are only 8 that have that non-discrimination ordinance, and they are Buncombe County, Chatham County, Durham County, Mecklenburg County, New Hanover County, Orange County, and Wake County. Those are the ones that I only have at this particular time that are the counties that have the non-discrimination ordinances in effect in those cities and counties through North Carolina.
James,
yes.
do you happen to have an idea of how the NDO caseloads are looking across the state? Are you hearing that people are seeing high caseloads, or is it the opposite? Is it somewhere in between?
It's too early to tell, Wanda. A lot of places are just getting started, really, to be honest with you. Even though they may have had it for a year, they've been trying to find people that are qualified to be able to get into those positions. And that's taken a toll. And then once they're qualified, then they're trying to get their bearings as far as what does the NDO say? And then how are you going to enact that NDO in the city? So it's very early right now. I mean, there's a lot of places that are just still trying to feel it out. And it sounds like y'all are too, trying to feel it out as to what the NDO is and how to enact it in their local areas. And so it's really early right now. I haven't heard anything as far as whether they're higher or lower. So I haven't heard anything, but like I said earlier, the ones that I've talked to said that they're just trying to figure it out. Okay.
And then also, Jean, in terms of Greensboro in particular, have you heard anything with respect to any type of fines or penalties that they may have assessed for violating the NDOs? Because I know there was talk at one time in Greensboro, I believe, that they were going to assess a penalty of $500, or they were thinking about it. And here in Winston-Salem, to my knowledge, we have not gotten to that point, but we have gotten that question a couple of times in terms of, okay, well, if the NDOs are violated and if the city finds that there's discrimination or cause to believe that discrimination has occurred, then what? So you heard anything?
Yeah, I have heard a little bit from I hadn't talked to anybody in Greensboro, but I have heard that I think they are assessing fines if they find in violation. That's very interesting to me because I haven't heard any other place that is doing that or has even considered doing that. But I have heard offhand that yes, they are considering doing fines if if there's someone or business or something, they find violation under the NDO, that they may put some fines to it. So I have heard that. I haven't confirmed it, but I have heard that.
Okay, thank you. And Eleanor, you haven't heard anything else, right? In terms of the fines or penalties?
I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know if you saw my message in the chat, but I've talked to most of those cities, and most of them have had 0 cases. The only ones who have had any numbers at all are Charlotte and Durham, and even they are single digits.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said earlier, from what I'm gathering from the ones that I've talked to in Durham and in Charlotte, and also in New Hanover County, is low right now because they're trying to figure it out.
Yes, new for us all.
Yeah, it's a new game. It's a new game. It's something that North Carolina hasn't had at all on a local level. So everybody is kind of flying blind right now, trying to figure out how to do that. So
exactly.
don't feel like y'all are by yourselves. You're not. You're really not.
And Jean, I think the same could be said for DEI to some extent, because I know for most cities in North Carolina, it's the same thing. Some people expect that, we're going, just because we do have the DEI function, that we're supposed to have all the answers, all the standard operating procedures are supposed to be in place. And when staff comes on board, they're supposed to be able to just jump in, and we're supposed to be able to just give them their marching orders. And I've tried to help people to understand and manage expectations that it does not work like that. And so I've asked for patience from all involved, because this is something that is still new. And particularly with our department, we haven't even had it a year yet. And even before we got it, it had only been in existence for like a couple of months. So we just, it's something that is still a work in progress, even in that area. But NDO is even newer. So yeah.
Right.
Because there are lots of cities that have the DEI function as something new, right? Or either it's newly merged.
Yes, it is. It is a new thing for a lot of cities. They've kind of merged them, the NDO, along with the DEI offices. So yeah, it is a very, very new thing that is happening across the state. And like I said earlier, most of them are still trying to figure it out. They're just trying to figure out, okay, we have this NDO. Okay, how are we going to enact it? And what kinds of things that we need to, what are going to be the expectations, and what are some of the things that we see that aren't going to be met, all because of the NDOs and the DEI stuff. So it is a very, very new thing that's happening across the state. So what I can say is just, if you would tell people to please be patient, because people think it's going to be a very simple process. It is not. It's not going to be a simple process, and it's going to take some time for everyone that is doing this work to gather themselves and figure out how it should be enacted, as well as what is it that they're empowering us with, and how can it be enacted in their cities.
And that is true, and especially in the context of government, because some people look at what's going on in private sector and some of their programming and their strategies and approaches, and they think, well, why can't we do that here? And with government, we have far more parameters and restrictions. It's not the same thing. Public sector and private sector are completely different when it comes to policies and things like that.
Totally two different monsters when it comes to DEI. Just like you said, Wanda, there are some parameters that government has that kind of restricts certain things to be done, as compared to the businesses that have DEI offices. They have buy-in from their local, either their management or their CEO, whereas in a lot of cities, there may be some resentment from either city council members, from county board commissioners, but they realize they've got to have that in order to do some things that they want to do concerning federal monies. and state monies possibly. So yeah, it is a different process as compared from the government standpoint of DEI as compared to business point of DEI.
I always really appreciate the updates on what you're seeing at the state level. And unfortunately, I know the discrimination issues persist across the state, but I'm curious, are you seeing meritorious cases and complaints come out of certain parts of the state more than others?
Yes. Very simple answer, yes.
Care to tell us where the hotbeds are?
Well, it depends. I could tell you, now I can't tell you the ones that the cities that have the local ordinances that cover, just like Winston. Wanda can tell you that more than I can. Greensboro, Charlotte, Durham, Orange County, all of them, they have their statistics. But for me, for my office, the hot spots tend to be in two different areas. One, it tends to be in the Raleigh, the Wake County area, because Wake County is growing like weeds. I mean, I told somebody the other day, you go 1 week, you go down one street and there's an empty vacant lot. And 2 weeks later, you're seeing the dirt being cleared. And another week, you see a slab put up and you don't even know, you're like, am I in the same area?
The entire county.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that the whole county, not just in Raleigh, but the whole Wake County is like that. And so, I mean, I went down the street the other day, today, matter of fact, and I saw a city barbecue and it wasn't there 2 months ago. And I'm like, what in the world? So Raleigh, though, is one of the hotbeds, but also Raleigh and Wake County is one, but also Fayetteville, the Cumberland County area. I think that has to do with the moving of all kinds of armed forces moving into that area, not just in Fayetteville, but in Hope Mills and all that surrounding area, in Hope County, all of that surrounding area is growing like weeds, and that's a hotbed as well. And then we're starting to get a little bit more from Greenville, and we're starting to get a little bit more from what's that area? It's west. I can't think right now, but it's a small area. It's not a big area, but it's a small rural area that we tend to get. But those tends to be the hotbeds right now for fair housing. And yes, ma'am, it's those areas that we tend to get a lot of cases from. I still have two more things that I wanted to share with you. This thing, I wanted to share with you that you are not alone as far as a local human relations commission. Right now, currently, we have 26 commissions in the state. We've just added 2 new ones. Just brand spanking new. One is in Pitt County, where Greenville is, ECU area. And the other is in the town of Winterfield, which is in Pitt County. I just found out from yesterday, I got a message that they have created a Winterfield Human Relations Board, and they want me to come down and do training for them, the orientation training for them very, very soon. They have 7 members. The town council voted it in a couple of months ago, and I'm just finding out about it yesterday. So those are the 2 most current local human relations commissions. The total amount is 26. However, we will have a 27th one very soon. The Elizabeth City Council and the Pasquotank County Board of Commissioners have voted to create the Elizabeth City Pasquotank County Human Relations Commission. Once they are finalized, the list of commission members on the commission, it will be the 27th Local Human Relations Commission in North Carolina. We have been working with them for months.
You'll be busy with them.
Huh?
I couldn't help but say you'll be busy with them. It'll be good.
Yeah, we after the situation that happened down there, the state board asked me to contact them to find out what was going on. They had a community relations commission but it was kind of dormant. And I went down and did a presentation in front of the joint city council and county commissioners back in a couple of months ago. And they said that they want to consider doing it. But from the meeting that I had, they weren't voting that night, but from the meeting that we had, a lot of them were in agreement that they felt like something like that needed to be established. And just recently, like last 2 weeks ago, I got an email stating that the County Board of Commissioners had voted for it and the City Council just voted for it last week. So now they're in the process of finding people to be members of that commission. And once they do, I'll be going down to Elizabeth City and doing the training, orientation training for them. And so we will have 27 local human relations commissions very, very soon. And so I just wanted to let you, yes.
Jean, I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to jump in though, because before you stopped talking about this topic, I was going to ask if you or Commissioner Haynes could give some context or background about what has gone on in that area, because we are, live streamed. And so if there's anyone watching from the community, maybe they could benefit from knowing exactly what you all were referencing in terms of what has happened in that area.
Sure. Basically what was happening is that there was a shooting of a Black male by sheriff's deputies. They were trying to give they were serving a warrant to this gentleman, and they shot this gentleman numerous times, and it brought national attention to the Elizabeth City area. Of course, there was a cry that it was excessive force and those kinds of things. And so far, I don't know if it's been cleared up or anything. And our office is not really dealing with that part of it. But what our office is dealing with is to try to bring in the conception of having a local human relations commission for the city as well as for the county. And so, like I said earlier, I was tasked by the commission members of the North Carolina Human Relations Commission to contact the city manager, to contact the county manager, to find out if they had a commission. And if they did, what's going on with it. And if they didn't, could we help them to see whether a local human relations commission could be established? And that's what happened. We met with the city council, city manager, interim city manager at that time, and the county manager. And then the meeting between the city council, Elizabeth City Council, and the joint meeting with the Elizabeth City Council and the Pasquotank County Board of Commissioners was held. And I attended and did a presentation about the role of a local human relations commission. And just recently, like I said earlier, in February, the Pasquotank County Human Relations Commission, the Pasquotank County Board of Commissioners, voted to have a commission. And then just last week, the Elizabeth City Council voted to also have a joint local human relations between the city and the county. And so that's what happened. And like I said earlier, once they do have their commission's members set, then we will go down and do a local human relations orientation training with them to let them know what they do, how they were created, how to develop a work plan, and what kinds of issues they can deal with. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the next statewide meeting with the local human relations commissions. I don't know if all of you have attended either one or many statewide meetings with the local human relations commissions, but we are getting ready to have one, and it will be on Tuesday, September 27th, 2022. It will be in person. This will be the first one in person in 2.5 years. The numbers are down. We feel like this would be a great opportunity for people to meet each other in person rather on virtual. This meeting will not be on virtual. so you can attend virtually. It is an in-person meeting in Greensboro at the Hilton Hotel in Greensboro, North Carolina. The meeting will
Gene, you mean
last
Greenville?
Greenville. I'm sorry, Greenville. Why I keep saying Greensboro? I got Greensboro on the brain. Greenville, home of the ECU. I can't even remember, Pirates. Okay. It will be in Greenville. The city of Greenville and the city of Greenville Human Relations Council are sponsoring this meeting. Breakfast and lunch will be served. Also, they have blocked off some rooms that if you want to come to the meeting and stay Monday night prior to the day that you have the meeting will be held, they have blocked some rooms for people who are coming from the western part of the state and the southern part of the state to go to Greenville. And I have sent an email to most of the staff there, as well as Wanda. And if you're interested in going, she has the email. She also has the hotel information and the agenda for that statewide meeting. We're looking for you to, if you would be interested in coming, please send me an RSVP email with your name and your position, what commission you are representing. We are hoping that a lot of people will attend. This one is going to be a very important meeting because not only are we, there's one presentation from the Community Action Groups Association, North Carolina Community Action Association president and director of training and programs will be there to talk about what they do and how many community action groups they have in the state. And then this is the big one. It's going to be an interactive session between two facilitators as well as with the persons who attend from local human relations commissions across the state. It will involve people who attend to give ideas and topics on a proposed statewide conference that is being planned for next year. So they are looking for, I'm part of it. We are looking for ideas and topics to be considered, to be used and presented and conducted at the proposed statewide conference that we're planning for next year. And it will be a great opportunity for you to be there and to give your input as to the topics or ideas that you have for the group to consider, so that when they do plan it, hopefully your ideas will be a part of that statewide conference that's coming up next year. And so just wanted also to, it will be a COVID event, meaning that masks will be worn at that meeting. Now I know you have to take the mask off because you can't eat with a mask on, but we are still saying that it is going to be a COVID event and masks would be required except for the speakers and except for when you have to eat, masks would be required. And so I just wanted to let you know that the statewide meeting is on again. And we're looking forward to seeing you there. If you decide you want to come, I will be there along with some other persons from other local human relations commissions. It will be a great opportunity for you to meet other persons that are doing the same work that you're doing, but in other parts of the state. And so I just wanted to let you know that, yes, we are having the third quarter statewide meeting with the local human relations commissions. That was all that I had. I could have gone more, but I know Wanda said don't do that. And but that's all I had.
I didn't say any such thing.
No, you did.
Don't even try.
I'm putting Wanda on the spot. No, she didn't do that. She just said just go with what you have. And but
there you go. There you go.
Said,
and Gene,
yeah,
that's right. And Gene, okay, I know we have at least one commissioner who is interested in attending, and that is Commissioner Wiggins. And so you would need for her to RSVP directly to you though, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And just to know right now, to have an idea, are any other commissioners interested in going to Greenville for the meeting right now? Okay. Well, right now we know we at least will have Commissioner Wiggins there to represent Winston-Salem. And also I wanted to ask if you could talk about the new Hanover County event that's coming up in September.
Sure. New Hanover County has a diversity and equity inclusion office. Linda Thompson is the chief diversity officer for the county. They are sponsoring the New Hanover County Diversity and Inclusion Summit, and it's on September 8th and September 9th of this year at the community college. They moved it from the convention center to the local community college in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I am going to be one of the speakers talking about hate crimes and hate bias incidences, a look at hate crimes and hate bias incidences in North Carolina. But they're going to be talking about different types of things that deal with DEI issues. And from what I understand from Linda, she's very excited to have that type of summit. And she's looking forward to a lot of places that have DEI officers or programs to send people to that summit because it will be a great summit. From what I understand, the speakers are going to be great. I'm not saying me, but I'm saying the other speakers that are presenting in different areas of DEI work are going to be top notch, and that it will be a great experience to find out, meet people that are doing DEI work, as well as getting some great information that can help you to bring back to Winston to deal with DEI issues in the Winston-Salem area.
Thank you for that overview, Jean. And we do have one staff member who will be representing the department, and that is Brittany, and she is in our DEI division. I'm not sure if we will have any commissioners interested. And for us, just so you know, we have a few vacancies in our department. And so that week is going to be dicey for too many of us to be able to attend, because we're going to be conducting interviews to try to fill these vacancies as quickly as we can, so that it doesn't disrupt operations too much. But like I said, we do at least have Brittany attending, and any other commissioners who are interested. I've already sent them, by the way, the information about Greenville and this summit or conference. And so they do have that information.
Okay.
So I appreciate you giving an overview.
Yes. Well, anybody have any questions of me as far as certain things that are going on? Well, if not, I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you, to give you some updates on what's going on the state level. And I hope that the rest of the retreat, which is about to close in a few, I'm trying to get out the way so y'all can get out of here. But I hope that the retreat has been a very successful retreat. And hopefully I'll get to see you in September in Greenville. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane. As always, thank you for lending us your expertise. Thank you. Okay, Chair Leak, we are at the final item on the agenda, which is our wrap up, and any closing comments, thoughts, insights.
All right, well, we have really toughed it out from 10 to 3. We all have had our camera on for that long duration of period. So, but with that said, are there any comments, closing comments? I don't have any closing comments, just with the exception of, I know we will resume meeting back next month, correct? Virtually though.
Next month, you all have the high school race relations forum.
That's right.
And usually you all, and that, I'm glad you brought that up, because for the remainder of the year, the way it looks is you would meet in October, but in September, you usually don't meet because of the forum, but that's up to you all if you choose to do that differently this year. And in November, we would need for you all to vote on moving that November date up because it will conflict with the Thanksgiving holiday. So the calendar, we do need you all to decide on the meeting calendar questions. In December, by the way, you don't usually meet because of the holidays, but on top of that, in the past, we've had open house, and that remains to be determined for this year because unlike the eastern part of the state that Jean was referencing, here in Winston-Salem, as you all know, our numbers are up. And so we just have to continue to monitor to see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well. So do we need to determine whether they want to have a September meeting and take the place of our student relations banquet, not banquet, but forum? Okay. Yes,
we need to have you all to vote on your meeting schedule for September through December, the remainder of the calendar year.
Okay. So is there a motion on the floor?
I will make a motion that we skip the September meeting and go ahead with the October meeting, and well, we can talk about the November meeting in a second. I'll start with that. I'll motion that we skip September and go ahead with October meeting as standard scheduled.
All right, motion by Commissioner Price. There a second?
I second.
Second by Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor? Commissioner Wiggins?
Aye.
Commissioner Price?
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes?
Aye.
Okay, of course, Chair Leak is aye. Any opposed? In the discussion? All right, the ayes carry it. All right. Now we're going to move forward with the second motion for the November meeting. Well, to actually move the date. Well, do we have to have a motion to move the meeting date up in November? We do? Okay. All right.
So I make a when is the meeting date normally? The 24th?
I know, I was getting ready to put
24th.
that on, yeah.
Okay. So I make a motion that we move the meeting to the 17th, the week before.
I will second that.
I will say this, I will not be in attendance on November the 17th. That is so Vice Chair Thompson will have to officiate the meeting, so.
So Vice Chair Thompson, would you be available to preside over that meeting? You all can move it to another date too. It doesn't have to be that day.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we could always move it back 1 week to December 1st, since we'll be not meeting in December.
Oh.
Well, yeah, we could do that.
Does anyone have any known conflicts for December 1st?
Because at our December meeting, we will vote for new officers, correct?
I think you have voted for new officers in November and you've done it in January. So somewhere up in there you would do it.
Okay. All right, so let's aim for December the 1st for the request from Commissioner Thompson.
Yeah.
All right, second by Commissioner Price.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Taylor.
Aye.
Commissioner Wiggins.
Aye.
Commissioner Haynes.
Aye.
Chair Leak, of course, is aye as well. Any opposed? In the discussion? All right, the ayes carried. All right, thank you so much. All right, that's all that I have in regards to Secretary Duncan, you have a comment?
Yes, I have a question, just for clarification. So we won't have a meeting in September. The next meeting is October and December.
Correct.
Okay.
And actually that September issue, what we typically say is that the race relations forum will take the place of your meeting. And what that means is the hope and expectation is for commissioners to attend the race relations forum. And so if it's virtual, you would just sign in, and if it's in person, which is unlikely, but we'll see, then you would make an effort to be there. But that's what that means. Instead of just canceling it all together, we just say that this takes the place of it, because usually the Race Relations Forum is held on the night of your regular meeting or very close to it, like maybe that week.
Correct.
And commissioners, do you have a preference for when you vote for officers? Do you prefer to do it in November, or do you prefer to do it in January? Because that way, maybe if you go ahead and decide that now, it will give people enough notice to plan to attend that meeting so they can vote, or if they want to hold a particular position, they can plan to do so, to be prepared.
My preference would be to just go ahead with December. So we're going to the new year with January.
Okay.
Yep, that's what I was going to say as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just make sure to have that on the agenda for December's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it possible to send out calendar invites for our commissioners so we can just can make sure we schedule around these, or are we just expected to put them on our own calendars? And I'm fine to do that.
The thing is, with these meetings, I thought marketing usually did that. They do the calendar invites, but we'll follow back up with marketing. But just to be on the safe side, I would strongly recommend that you all calendar those, but we'll circle back with marketing about how that would work. Because in their invites, I think they include the link, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
just as a closing comment, Chair Leak and commissioners, like I said, we do have some vacancies right now, and we will be doing interviews in the coming days. And we're going to stagger how we are advertising, posting, and hiring, because we do have those vacancies. So for the first round, we're going to be interviewing for the assistant director position and the 2 language access coordinator positions. Those are in the first round. And so those are currently posted. And the second round, we're going to be looking at the equity. We're looking at the coordinator for equity and inclusion. And we're also looking at the human relations NDO analyst position, which is focused on outreach primarily. That is the position that is being vacated after today by Drashanta. So those would be the next 2. After that, we will look at, hopefully, well, even in between, we might find another intern that can be a paid intern, in addition to the administrative assistant position that will support the LACs and DEI, and it will also support Carlin's position because she is a senior administrative assistant. So that administrative assistant would be a junior level to her and would back her up and support her. And so that job description has been modified to reflect that, to make it clear that that administrative assistant position will be a department-wide support resource, but also their areas of focus will be on the language access program and on DEI, but not just those programs.
Mm-hmm.
So just wanted to make you all aware of that. So we're doing them in those stages so that we can stagger them, and hopefully we can handle, doing the interviews and going through the applications and so forth. But HR is a big help for helping to do that as well. So we'll keep you posted, and we'll share those links to the postings as they become available.
Okay.
That sounds great.
Any other comments?
This has been great. I've enjoyed this. It's been great to see you all. I feel like we've gotten a lot of great information, made some good decisions. So I feel this was super successful, but great job, everyone.
Thank you. And as well, I have enjoyed it as well. So if there are not any other comments or concerns, I entertain a motion to adjourn for our 2022 retreat.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Vice Chair Thompson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Haynes. Commissioner Wiggins,
Aye.
Commissioner Taylor,
Aye.
Commissioner Price,
Aye.
Vice Chair Thompson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Haynes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Chair Lee is aye as well. Any opposed? Any discussion? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you all. Have a blessed weekend.
Have a good end.